I'm just loading up. There we go. All right, man. So we're gonna get into things really quickly here. So Max, I appreciate you joining, but I'll just do a quick intro and then we'll get things rolling. Sound good?
Perfect.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today I'm here with one of my athletes, Max Smith, to talk a little bit about his last fight, his last big win that he came away with, and just a little bit about your experiences working with us so far. So, Max, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you.
Nah, nice to be here, man. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so first off, tell us a little bit about you, like a little bit about your background, what got you into MMA, where you're at in your career right now, goals for the future, all that kind of stuff. Let's hear a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so my name's Max. I'm 19. I've been training for about 2 years now. Done a little bit of kickboxing before, but kind of like once a week for a little bit, nothing serious. But yeah, I mean, I started off playing football or soccer for you guys. Started off playing football. I got to a high level, academy level. It was my dream growing up to be a professional footballer, like most kids. That sort of died out. I got injuries. I became ill and had to stop doing that. Stopped going to school, and through that and going through an illness of what I went through, someone showed me a video of fighting. Someone showed me, I think it was a TikTok of fighting. I was like, oh, that was cool. And then I watched another one, and then another one, and then you watch a full fight, and sort of went down the loophole. And I just thought of, from going through an illness, a fairly individual thing, I wanted to do something for myself, and there's nothing really lonelier than fighting. It's the hardest and loneliest sport in the world, so why not?
Why not? Why not? And then I love it too, because like it's just funny, the different cultures for anybody that hasn't been able to figure that out. Max is out in the UK, so it's funny hearing that, like being Canadian and hearing like growing up wanting to be a footballer, like like every kid's dream. It's like here, that's hockey, right? It's like every kid grows up wanting to be in the NHL. So it's just always funny hearing those little differences. But man, I love especially the fact that you've been through everything you have with the illness, the injuries, and all that stuff, and then in such a short time, you said you've been training for 2 years. In such a short time, you've been able to do a lot already. But then talk me through, career goals in the future. It's like if everything plays out the way that it can and the way that I'm confident it will, what does the career in fighting hold for you?
I mean, the goal, obviously, I want to turn professional. I want to get to the highest level. Obviously, the UFC, that's the goal for everyone. But I think there's a lot of people talking and not a lot of people fighting, or there's a lot of people fighting but not doing the extra stuff. The fight is, for me as an amateur, doing 3-minute rounds. That's 9 minutes. There's a lot more that goes into it than them 9 minutes, and I think a lot of people are saying they want to get to a certain level when they're either not taking it that seriously or they're not training that seriously. So for me, I think it's important to set these short and long-term goals and to speak them, to say if you have the confidence it's going to happen, and then tell people.
I love what you said there about people that say they want to do that, because again, yeah, obviously I speak to fighters every single day, and more often than not, it's always, I'm going to be a UFC champion, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, right? Like all of that speak that you hear so much of. But when you said that, a lot of people that are talking and a lot of people that aren't fighting, or a lot of people that are, talking the talk but not doing those little extra things, obviously you're a pretty young guy still. And I know even for myself, it's a little bit of a different way as a business owner and as a coach. It took me a long time to realize that me walking around saying I want to coach athletes for a living wasn't enough for me to actually build a career coaching athletes for a living, right? It took me a lot longer than it seems to have taken you, but I firmly agree with you. There are a lot of people out there saying they want to achieve all these things, but not doing what they actually need to do to achieve it. What was it that kind of tipped you off that like, hey, me just showing up to the gym a few times a week and then taking some fights isn't going to be enough if I truly want to make a career out of this?
I think I've always been quite lucky that I've been like this for a lot of my life. It wasn't, when I was a kid, it wasn't enough to play football on a Sunday and train once a week. I wanted to train every day. I wanted to, for hours, I used to just play in the garden with my dad and do drills and practice over and over. It wasn't enough just to do practice in the evening. I'd get home from school and play. And luckily I've grown up and been surrounded by people who have been very hardworking and sort of haven't done the bare minimum. So all I've been around my whole life is people that have done 100% in whatever they're doing, whether that's providing for your family, working, sport. I've been around people that have given 100%. So for me, I it's just all I know, and I think I've been lucky enough to have very supportive parents that have done everything for me and taken me to training when I did before I had my license, and waiting there for like 2 hours, just sitting there in a car park waiting for me to finish training, which is, they've done more than I could ever ask. And you know, it would be almost an insult if I just sort of sacked off and didn't give 100% when I've had so many people who've been supportive of me, my coaches offering extra sessions and this and that and helping me with weight cuts. It would be just rude to just give 50% and half-ass it.
I love that mentality, man. Like, so it almost is like you feel like it's owed to those people that have put so much into you that it's like, why would I do anything other than everything I can?
Yeah. And like the sport isn't like the training, like you love it, but it sucks, especially in camp when you're working so hard. The weight cuts suck. Like I don't see a point in doing it half-ass and putting myself in. You're still going to hurt. You're still going to ache. Only doing a couple sessions, so you might as well get something out of it.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I've said that from day one of working with fighters is like, I couldn't imagine doing this as like a hobby, like doing this as just like, oh, I guess I'll just try it out. Like, I feel like this is one of those things that's like, you got to be in or you got to be out.
Yeah. What's like, I don't really get the point in getting punched in the head and getting kicked and kneed for a bit of fun. To like, no, I'm doing this for a career and to achieve something.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I love too that you've had such a good support system because obviously that is super important. But one thing that I know, like I know you know about me, but one thing that, you know, is really important to me is trying to instill that kind of mentality of like, you know, hard work and actually putting the effort into achieving the goals. I'm trying to instill that mentality into everybody that I work with, but also as many athletes as possible. That's one of the main drivers behind this podcast. If you are speaking to an athlete that maybe doesn't have that same support system around them, or they're maybe sitting here being like, you know, thinking that they work hard, but not going that extra mile, is there anything that you could say to them to like, you know, either try to clue them into like, hey, there's more you need to be doing, or as far as like where to look out to try to maybe find a support system somewhere if they don't actually have one naturally in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with working with you, it's been so helpful having someone there whenever I need questions, whenever I'm struggling, whether I don't feel like I want to train today, I don't want to do this, and then I get the notification going, things to do today, and it's like workout one. It's like, oh man, I want to go home from work today. Like,
Shit,
but
okay.
yeah, especially with me, I'm a personal trainer. I work at a gym all day, so I finish my shift and I train straight after with all my strength and conditioning sessions. So having them reminders and having the checkups and the calls and just, you've kind of got to chuck yourself in at the deep end, edging yourself in a little bit. Like obviously there's a certain point where you're going to exhaust yourself, but chucking yourself in, training with people that are better than you and getting not beat up a little bit, but getting worked and sort of suffering, and you get beat up a little bit less every time, and eventually you start catching them and you start subbing them, or the little victories of passing their guard or whatever. But you kind of just got to chuck yourself in at the deep end, and once you start seeing a little bit of progress, then you can move on. But if you're only doing a little bit and you think you're doing a lot, you're not seeing that much progress, and you're wondering why you don't feel that motivated to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a huge point for anybody listening is like, if you think you're doing a lot, but you're not seeing that much progress, that means you're not doing a lot yet. That means you're not doing enough. Right. It's because like I speak to a lot of athletes, I know myself, that like, you know, they tell me, oh yeah, I'm training every single day. I'm doing all of this great stuff. And there's like, but I still have all this trouble with my gas tank. And then I'm like, okay, so that means that what you're doing isn't working. Like, even if you're working hard, you're either not doing enough or you're doing the wrong stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
I always get roasted on TikTok, and it always makes me laugh because every time I say like you got to be smarter and you can't just grind 24 hours a day, I've got people telling me, stop telling me not to work hard. And I'm like, just get the fucking point. Like
Honestly, like I could I could go outside. It's absolutely pouring it down in England as per. But I could go outside right now and run for 4 hours straight. It's not that helpful, but I'm not fighting for 4 hours. I'm fighting for 9 minutes. And that was one thing that has massively helped me in these programs. Is before that, I'd be like, oh, okay. Obviously, it's important to switch up. And when I was running, I wouldn't just do like a 10K or some would be interval runs, some would be sprints, but I'd be like, okay, I'll just do 10Ks. And that's all nice and good, but I'm not fighting for however long it takes me to run a 10K. And fighting is about as hectic as it's going to get. It's not a nice, calm, consistent pace. It's 100 miles an hour, and then you're standing there looking at each other exhausted, and then 100 mile an hour again. So, yeah, there's no point running 10K or just running yourself ragged for no reason, just risking injury.
I love hearing that, man. I absolutely love hearing that because obviously you've been working with me long enough now that you understand, my views on that kind of stuff. But it always cracks me up with like the TikTok trolls coming through being like, running's the best conditioning, man. It's like, no, it's not. But okay, besides the point. Like, and I love what you said there too of like, it's all good. You can go out and run for 4 hours, but like you said, you're not fighting for 4 hours. And it's not that every training session needs to mimic exactly what you do in the fight, but it has to have a purpose of helping you improve what you're doing in the fight. And there's a certain extent, right, with just packing on the miles, that it's like there's a certain extent that's a good aerobic benefit. You're going to feel some changes for it. And then there's a certain extent where you're trying to pour water into a water bottle that's already full. Like it doesn't help after a while, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I think obviously like my job being a personal trainer, I know my own bits and pieces, but I'm more focused on body recomposition, gaining and losing weight and stuff like that. And you go back to the people saying, "Oh, my gas isn't as good," and I'm doing everything. You hear it with people trying to lose or gain weight. It's like for me, I'm still a skinny kid, but like I was very skinny, and I went from about 55 kilos to about 75 kilos in about 2 years. And people will be like, "Oh, I'm eating, but I'm not gaining weight." You're not eating enough. Simple. If you're in a calorie surplus, you will gain that weight. So if you're telling me you are and you're not gaining weight, then it's a numbers. Like it's just a fact. It's a 1+1. So
plain and simple, either you're not eating enough or you're eating the wrong stuff, so you're gaining the wrong kind of weight, right?
Exactly. So yeah, no, I think my training beforehand was very much, oh, if I run and lift, I'll be in the best shape. And obviously there are people that look amazing and they have unbelievable physique, but it's not tailored to what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's one huge thing. I'm really glad you said that because that's a big thing that I think a lot of people, make mistakes with as well. Is they're like, well, they're all shredded, so they're sitting there being like, well, look at me, I'm in great shape, I know what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, but if your gas tank fails you in the first 2 minutes of the fight, you might be in great shape, but you're not in fight shape, and that's two different things, right?
Yeah,
it's like it's one thing to have no fat on your body and be like in great shape, look good, flexing and all that. That's cool. But if your goal is to fight 3 3-minute rounds and you can't do that at a high pace, the shape you're in doesn't matter.
Like there's so many examples, whether it's the Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, like it doesn't matter. You look at the Diaz brothers, were never in exceptional shape. Like they were never like super jacked, but they were long and skinny like me and were able to just put a pace on people. The same as Max Holloway is a fairly slim, long reach, puts a pace on people. And you don't need to look like Paulo Costa, although we'd all love to look like that. Certainly,
yeah, it's cool to look that way. That doesn't need to be the goal if your goal is to be a UFC champion, right? It's like there's different pieces to the puzzle. So I love that we touched on that piece of like, there's a difference between looking like you're in shape and actually being in shape. And so I wanted to ask you. So this was obviously your fourth fight, right? Yeah. This last one, it was what, 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, about 2 or so weeks ago, yeah.
Okay, so this was your fourth fight. This was the first one with us working together. So talk me through, the fight camp itself and like, the improvements, the changes you were able to make, just having, again, like you said, that tailored strength and conditioning plan versus the other times when you're kind of just going, I'm going to run, I'm going to lift, and that'll do the trick for me.
Honestly, it's day and night. Like the differences, even like when I first signed up with you, and like I told my parents, obviously I'm 19, I've just started my full-time job. I'm like, oh, I'm paying this guy, and they're like, you're a PT. They were like, why are you paying this money? This is ridiculous. And then I came out, and my dad, after I thought, my dad was like, yeah, no, 100% worth the investment. Like, I was skeptical, but 100%. Like, and it was weird changing the training to stuff like the med ball throws, where it might be 5 or so reps where you're going 100%, but afterwards you're not knackered in yourself, you're not dead, or like you've just done a really heavy squat or something like that. And changing to that training, I would sometimes finish sets and be like, why am I not completely dead? Like, I'm not working hard enough, and I'd panic. And then I learn a bit more, like, you don't need to kill yourself on every single set. It's not about that. And working on like the plyometric bits and having the more power based stuff rather than just sort of working in that like hypertrophy range. Like, I felt, even from taking clips of my pad work, is day and night, I'm so much more explosive and so much quicker from my legs, my shoulders, everything, my whole body. And having the program where a lot of it, well, almost all of it is full body. So I wasn't getting any DOMs. I wasn't going to training feeling super sore. Whereas before, like, it would just be like, okay, I do a push day, I do a pull day, I do a leg day. And then I'm like wrestling on Sunday and I can barely walk because my legs are absolutely knackered. So like, that change was so much nicer. And I was able to put more into my sessions in the evening and then get more out of my strength and conditioning sessions. So it was a win-win. And I felt a lot bigger. I felt a lot stronger. I felt faster. Like, in every asset, I felt it had improved. And kind of, I didn't notice, like, for the first like 5-6 weeks, like, you're kind of like, oh, I look there, and then suddenly you realize, you go, okay, my legs look a lot bigger. And then you watch a video of yourself in training, you go, I look bigger, I look stronger. And I mean, especially, you can go back and watch my fights were on YouTube, especially my first fight, and that was at 70 kilos. And that was a couple of weeks after turning 18, so I was literally a kid, but I was just skin and bone. I was just some lanky kid, and I mean, I'm still somewhat lanky, but like, there's a massive
But you're looking
improvement.
strong now, though. There's a difference. You can be lanky and strong, or you can be skin and bone. Like, you are 100%
Yeah,
not skin and bone. Like, you look jacked. You're just a longer kind of build, right?
yeah. Like, and a lot of people have said that when grappling and stuff like that, I feel more like a man now rather than sort of a teenager. And although obviously I'm only 19, I'll sort of develop that man strength for like 24, 25. Like, I just feel a lot stronger. And sort of, they were like, yeah, you felt like a bit of a boy before. And sort of, if we went 100% like power, we could just push you off and stuff like that. So hearing that from teammates and coaches from when I was hitting pads, and they can say how much a difference they can feel, was nice for me.
So there are a few things I want to touch on from there. First off, it makes my absolute day to hear all of the improvements and everything like that. Like, as you know from working with me, it's my goal that every person I work with is feeling exactly what you're feeling right now. But first, I wanted to say that just like hit my heart when you said, like, after you came out after the fight, your dad was like, dude, completely worth the investment. Like, I just love hearing that, because I hear that a lot, right? People will say, well, I know how to train, so I don't need a strength coach. And it's like, yeah, you know how to train. You don't know how to train this way, right?
Yeah,
Because
I think people need to
all
let
that
that.
time, yeah, like
People
all that
ego
time that
get
you guys are building technique, you guys are working on the pads, doing all of that. When you have a good strength coach, they're focused on improving your ability to perform in the sport. That's it, right? That's my number one focus over everything. So it's like, while your MMA coaches are focusing here, you're focusing here, whoever else is focusing here, that's the one point of focus for me, right? So it's like, yeah, everybody, you can know how to train yourself, but when you hire people that is their only focus, they're going to know things that you don't know, plain and simple. Like,
exactly.
and then the other thing I wanted to really touch on there, like you said, that feeling of panic, like you're finishing up sessions and you're feeling like, oh, I'm not totally dead. Like, I feel like I'm not working hard enough. In those moments, what kind of went through your head when you're like, okay, I feel like I'm not working hard enough, but I'm going to trust it. I'm going to know that, like, this is going to help me in the end, and I'm going to move on. I'm not going to finish off with, another 50 sets of squats just to crush my legs, because that's what I think I need to do.
I think, like, first, like, week 2, I was like, oh, well, I'll do a little bit extra cardio then. That'll knock me out. And then I was like, I'm doing an hour strength and conditioning, and then I'm adding another 20 minutes of intense cardio. I've got 4 hours of training in the evening. I'm like, I don't need to be doing this. And I'm like, I'm paying someone to tell me what to do because they know. I was like, well, why what's the point in paying the money if I'm not going to listen? So, and yeah, so I was sort of let your ego go, especially as fighters. We all got egos, we all got chips on our shoulders, and like, especially for me as a personal trainer, like I have had to let go of going, I know what I'm doing, to go, do you know what, I know about this area stuff the way you know about specific stuff, I know about specific stuff. Your expertise is in the area that I need, so let your ego go and listen. I think a lot of people need to let their egos go. I think it would improve them a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you touched on the ego side and not even like not from a place of superiority. Like I definitely have that in myself as a coach too, of like, every once in a while I'll see things on the internet and my first instinct is like, oh, idiot. And then
I do that too. I did say,
okay, maybe take a look at it before I judge it. Like, and I know a lot of people out there are like that. So I love that you were able to make that change, because really and truly, I've heard that from a number of athletes I work with, that they're like, I don't feel like I work that, not that they don't feel like they work hard. That's the wrong word. I know that the sessions we're doing are still pushing you, but they're not killing you every time. And that's the other thing I really wanted to touch on. And anybody that was listening to that, that's one of the most important things I want you to take away from this is every session doesn't need to kill you. Because like you said, when you're coming out of the strength and conditioning sessions and you're not doing that push-pull legs that's annihilating your legs and then trying to go wrestle with dead legs, you're getting more out of that wrestling now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like if you're boxing, but you're doing it after a hard push day, you're not going to get a lot out of that boxing session because your arms are dead and you can't throw them with any kind of speed.
Yeah.
Right. But with the stuff we were doing and the stuff we're putting together, you're improving consistently in the strength and conditioning. Like you said, you're seeing a video of yourself and you're going, holy shit, my legs are looking so much bigger. My body's looking so much bigger. I feel so much stronger. But you're also maximizing your skills training on top of that.
Yeah. I think with everything, with the training, not just physically, but mentally massively helped me in feeling a lot more confident. I think when I go, okay, I've done everything for this fight. I knew I was a grappler. Well, I am still the grappler in the fight I went into. I was the grappler. He was the striker. Classic matchup that happens all the time. And it was nice. This is the first time I wasn't fighting a debutant. So we were able to create a proper game plan. I was able to tell you the game plan of what we were trying to do and how I need to take him down. I need to be stronger than him and bigger than him. So it was nice and I felt so confident. I remember waking up fight day, and I knew it would be the hardest fight. And I remember waking up going, I'm so excited. I just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I was so excited. I was so calm. Even walking out, like 20 seconds before I was walking out, me and my coaches were joking, laughing about, and I wasn't trying to be super angry and super like tensed up because I was so confident and I knew I'd done everything. And I knew, looking at this guy when I went to the weigh-ins, I was like, I'm bigger than you. I'm going to be stronger than you. I was like, I've done everything. So not just physically, the training mentally massively helped with my confidence coming into it.
I love hearing that too, because that was the other part I wanted to touch on, was the mental side as well. Because obviously, like you said, when you know you've done everything, then you can just trust in the process. And like that doesn't guarantee a win. Like there are going to be times where you do everything and you still come up short, but you're going to be so much better off going in, because also like you're going to know that if this guy has me on my feet, I'm not going to tire out striking with him. If I take him down, I'm not going to tire out grappling with him and let him reverse me. Like I've got the gas to go 9 full minutes if I need to. But I've also got the power to put his lights out or choke his lights out if I need to too, right?
Yeah, 100%. That was the plan. Like,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that was the plan. Like, we knew when wanted to make it so when he thought I was going to strike, I'm going to grapple. Every time he thought I was going to grapple, I was going to strike, and be able to constantly, like, striking for 9 minutes isn't that hard. Grappling for 9 minutes isn't that hard. But constantly going grapple strike for 9 minutes is very difficult to do. So it was working on that and telling you the game plan, and you put it into the sessions and helped.
I love that, man. And so because obviously in previous fights, you still would have trained hard. Like I'm not thinking that, this is the first time you truly took it seriously, but obviously there were some different touches that we were able to put on it working together than what you were doing before. So when it comes to that confidence, like obviously, what would you say was the different feeling coming from, previous fights where you're still training hard, you're still putting everything into it versus this one with that structure in terms of the mentality coming into it and the confidence, each one you're putting everything you can into it. But obviously this one, you just had a little bit more guidance. Was there anything in particular that like changed that feeling of confidence for you? Or was it just that same feeling as before of knowing that like, I'm doing everything I can, so I'm going in here to win?
It was the doing everything I can, and also from feeling with my gas in sparring. My sparring, I'd always be able to. We do 15 rounds every Saturday, and before it'd be times where I'd do the 15 rounds. They'd be hard rounds, and I wouldn't be breathing heavy. I'd be fine. I'd get to fight night, first round ends, and I'm like, shit. Go back to my corner. I'm like, I'm shattered. Like, and I think I just had more confidence in my power, and that I was before it was, especially as I literally was on basically a kid, and it was like, I don't actually think I could probably knock this guy out or even drop him. I was like, and if I get him on the ground, it's like I was like, I've got to just tire him out and almost like tie him up by doing nothing and just stalling a little bit and landing some shots rather than being confident that I can go for the finish and squeeze and not blow my arms out. And I've got that gas to be able to work on the ground and tie him out by working rather than just sort of laying there and stop him doing whatever he wants to do. So I just had confidence going into this, going, I know I can finish him on the feet. I knew I can finish him on the ground. And I was confident wherever the fight went, despite I knew he was the better striker. But because I had such a solid game plan and I knew exactly what shots I was going to do and it was working perfectly after the stoppage, I I just felt so much more confident. I was just really calm and chilled out the whole day. Was just chilled out.
I love that. And I love the fact that you mentioned the gas too, because obviously that's a huge piece of, our focus when we're coming into it is that it's like you can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have the gas tank to implement it for the full fight, it doesn't matter. Right. And it's like, whereas, what I'm hearing from you is through training camp, you didn't have to sacrifice any skills sessions for the work we were doing, but that also gave you the confidence to step into the fight knowing 9 minutes doesn't matter. Grappling doesn't matter. Striking doesn't matter. Switching between the two doesn't matter. Like, I've got this regardless.
100%.
Hell yeah. I love hearing that. And so one last thing I wanted to really touch on with you is like, obviously I understand that MMA is not a cheap sport to be involved in. Like there's a lot to pay for. You're paying for gym fees. You're paying for one-on-ones with coaches. You're doing all of this stuff. And obviously, like you said, you're a personal trainer. And so when it came to having that first discussion with me and deciding to actually make that investment, especially we're in different countries, like we're, an 8-hour plane ride away from each other. Like, what was it that made you decide, okay, it's time to hire a coach for strength and conditioning, even though I'm a personal trainer, I know a little bit of this stuff, but not only what made you decide to hire a coach, what made you decide to go with a guy across the world in Canada versus like trying to find your local guys somewhere in town?
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw one of your TikToks, and I think it was like you just said comment fight if like it was something to do with, and you could have like a call with me. I was like, I might as well do it. I was like, you might reply. I was like, my profile picture's me in a cage. You'll probably reply, and you did, and we had a call, and I was like, I'd had some personal stuff that had gone on and was massively affecting me at the time, and I realized that I just needed to invest in myself. I was like, because no matter what happens, people, family, relationships, friends, whatever, you've kind of got number one is yourself. And I hadn't been putting myself number one. I'd had a lot go on, and I realized I was like, I think I just from watching videos and hearing how much people like LeBron James was spending weekly on like a massage just to help him recover, like this, the best equipment, whatever. And I was like, I'm saying I'm going to get to these levels. I'm like, but I'm not doing everything. I'm working very hard, but sometimes hard work isn't enough because it's scary making an investment like that. And you're going, oh God, like, especially in the UK right now, we've got like a massive living crisis. Energy bills are mental. Petrol prices are mental. But I was like, for someone as a 19-year-old who probably doesn't earn as much as people who are 25, 26, you made it clear how, like, the level of understanding, and you explained to me your goals, and not just going, like, you told me what you wanted to do in the sport and how you wanted to help people and how you had this goal of getting this many fighters and you wanted to have this brand and you wanted to help this many people. And I could tell that your heart was genuinely in it, like, as a personal trainer myself. And like, I like helping people. That's why I like being a personal trainer. It's nice to help people make progress, and it's a genuine joy. Like, it's a bonus, you get paid for it, but it's nice to help people and see how it improves people's lives. And my sport is not cheap. The equipment's not cheap. Like, with just, I realized the other day, for parking, where I park outside my gym, it cost me like £2 a day, which is probably like about 60 quid. It's about 60 quid a month, is a lot just in parking, and it's a lot of money. But again, it comes down to the people say they want to get to this level, but they're not working that hard, and they're also not willing to pay money for stuff. Like, if you want to get to a level, you've got to train at a good gym. You've got to pay a gym membership. If you want to get a good gas tank, and you want to, unless you are strength conditioning, unless you are you don't have that knowledge, you have to pay for someone to do that for you. And it's about making them investments and trying to make myself the best version of myself.
Dude, I love so much about what you just said, because again, like, like you said, you're 19 years old, working a personal training job, and from doing a lot of personal training before starting my own business as well, I know that that's not always the most fruitful, most profitable business to be in. There's a lot of hours that you're putting in that you're not getting paid for, and like you said, there's a joy to that job regardless. But the biggest thing that I took from that, and the biggest thing I hope everybody can take from that as well, from what you just said, is hard work isn't enough.
No.
Right. And it's like, it's just that beforehand you were working really hard. And I know you were. Like, I saw some stuff that you were doing before as well, and I knew you were working hard. And when I'm looking at athletes, when I'm talking to athletes and deciding whether or not they're going to be a good fit to work with me, that's one of the things that I look for. Is like, are you already putting work in? Because if you're lazy and you're not training hard, then working with me isn't going to benefit you that much, because you're not going to put that much into this either. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're working hard and you're driven and you have those kind of goals, that's when I know, okay, this kid's got potential. And in turn, I know that working together, we can maximize that potential and we can achieve every one of those goals you have set out.
Yeah, 100%. Like, my schedule, especially during training camp, is I do about 45 hours a week work and about to just over 20 hours a week training. It's a 65-hour work week. I count my training as, because I want this to be a career. It's kind of work, especially in camp. It feels like work.
It's 100% work, and like, that's one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's one thing I always try to stress with people, is that it's like, if you want this to be your career, it has to be your career now.
Yeah.
Right. It can't be like, oh, I don't feel like training today, so I won't. Like, no, get to the fucking gym. Like, if this is what you want to do for a living, you can't have those days where you're like, oh, I'm tired, I don't feel like it. Like, you've got to do it on those days. So I love that you're already looking at it as part of your work week. That's, I love
100%. Like, I think, especially that during camp, like outside of camp, there's a difference between needing a day off and just being lazy. Like, there are some days where you go, okay, I'm going to hurt myself more by training today. In 100%. Camp, you don't really get that luxury. You got to come training. If I get told I've got to come to training an hour early, I got to come training an hour early. That's how it works. There's no yes or no. It's not my decision. I get told when to come to the gym, I go to the gym, and I leave when I'm told to leave. And that's it. And like, I do early shifts at my gym where I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I finish at like 2, 3 o'clock. I then train till 4, go home, eat, and then I train 6 till 10. And I haven't been able to do anything. I don't get free time. I don't get to go out during camp. During camp, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to have a moan. I'm going to have a whinge, but I'm going to do it. Like, cutting weight sucks.
Yeah.
I'm going to moan about cutting weight. I'm going to moan about not being able to eat. I'm surrounded by PTs that are eating 6 meals a day, stuff in their face. Like, I'm going to have a moan and a whinge. I'm going to make weight. Like, I'm a fairly big lad for 66 kilos. I walk around at almost 80 kilos. I'm 6'1". Like, it's not the easiest cut in the world for me, but it's not super hard because I do it properly. And when you're on a time frame, you can't cheat.
Yeah.
You can't cheat. And especially on that last week where you got the water cut and the water load, and I'm not able to eat any salt or sugar. Like, I can't, with calories, you can cheat a little bit because you go, oh, I shouldn't have ate that. I'll do a bit more cardio. I'll burn them. I can't burn off salt and sugar. Like, I can't. So there's no cheating, and like, I'll have a whinge and a moan, but I'll get it done at the end of the day. Like, I think the people in camp, and they're like, oh no, I reckon I'll take the rest of the week off, and I'm like, why? Like, just do it. You got 12 weeks. You got 12 weeks to work your ass off and break, and it's horrible. It's horrible. I train the hours of what a lot of professional fighters are training 4 or 5 hours a day, and then doing a 9-hour work days. That's what a lot of pros are doing. I'm doing it as an amateur at my age, and that's why I'm confident into these fights, because I don't see anyone my age doing it. I don't know.
I absolutely love that. And like, I want to really reinforce that for anybody listening to this. Like, this is a 19-year-old kid working 45 hours a week and training 20 plus hours a week and doing the work already. It's like, so many people out there are, into their mid 20s, and they're complaining that like, oh, I'm too busy to, get that. Like, I've had people tell me that they want to do strength and conditioning, but they just don't have time. I'm like, well, then you don't get to go to the UFC. Like, sorry. If you're too busy, you're too busy, but like, then you don't get to go to the UFC. Like, you don't get to accomplish those dreams when you're too busy to get the work in. The ones who accomplish those dreams are the ones who are as busy as you are, working 45 hours a week, living on your own, doing all the things you're doing, and figuring it out.
Yeah, like I said, I'm lucky that I've had parents that during, especially fight week, when I'm just eating like cod, chicken, and broccoli, like, my mum will make my food. My mum will help me. They'll cook my food. Like, it will be there in the morning for me to take to work, and I'm lucky that I have that.
Yeah.
But if I didn't, I'd make the food myself, and it's like, I think people say they're too busy, and then you go, oh, what's your schedule like? And they're like, oh, well, I work 10 hours, and then I have like 2 hours of traveling, and then I have like 2 hours of eating. And I'm like, okay, it's like 14 hours. I'm like, you have an hour spare. I was like, they're like, oh, but I want to chill out a little bit in the evening. And I'm like, but you don't get to. That's not part of it. The luxury that we don't get that luxury. You're not just going to get a free pass because you go, oh, I've got a big dream. I'm going to get there because I'm praying and hoping. That's not how it works.
Well, that's just it too. I love what you said there, because it's like, yeah, there are a lot of people, and like, there's always that part of me that feels bad when I say something like that to somebody. But it's like, when they say, hey, I want to achieve this thing, it's like, oh, but I'm too busy to put in that extra time because like, I need to chill out in the evening. It's like, well, I mean, cool, but you don't need to chill out in the evening. You want to chill out in the evening.
Exactly.
But if you also want to get paid millions of dollars to fight on, international shows around the world and be a household name in this sport, sorry, you don't get to chill out in the evening.
Yeah, I realized I was doing enough training and I was working hard enough when people kind of like, people think you're a little bit weird, and they're like, really? They're like, well, I remember, like, I'll be at work with my mates, and I'm like, I got 4 hours training tonight. I was like, I've been up since 5, and they're like, yeah, that's rough. They're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And I was like, when other people are saying they don't want to do it, or they're like, really? Like, just take a little, maybe you're overdoing it, mate. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing enough. That's when I know that I'm doing enough, when people are like thinking you're a bit odd for what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually one other thing that I want to touch on too, because like, that was a big thing that I struggled with a lot, even as I was like getting into coaching and all of that. Because, obviously very different. What you're doing is much more physical, obviously, but, building a business, especially in this kind of industry, it's not one that a lot of people make it in. And spending those kind of hours, like, I'm up at 4:30 every morning. I work 10 to 14 to 15 hours a day consistently. Like, but I love every minute of it. And it took me a long time to understand that the people telling me, oh, you work too hard and you need time off, and like, they just don't get it. But I don't have to be like that either. Right. It's like, when you have friends and stuff telling you like, oh, come on, you're overdoing it, you just got to chill. And like, how do you deal with that in terms of just shutting that kind of stuff out and understanding, know I am on the right path and not like, oh, maybe they're onto something. Maybe I should just chill out a little bit.
I mean, for me, I quite like it when people do it. For me, I've always been like, as soon as someone goes like, even when people make comments just about the sport, they're like, really, like it's quite violent. Like you sure you want to do it? And I'm just like sitting there like, do you think I was unaware of what the sport was? And like hearing people sort of question it and be a bit like, oh, really? Like I love it. It's music to my ears. The more people sort of say I can't do something, the more I want to do it. So for me, just sort of flip it the other way around. When people are saying negative stuff, sit there and when this was the first fight that I'd walked out first. All my other fights I walked out second, and only thing I was nervous about was walking out first because I didn't want to just sort of wait in the cage. But I found that I much preferred it because I was able to just sort of walk around and do a bit of shadow boxing and get comfortable in there. And I remember I was standing in the cage just thinking like there are so many people thinking that I'm going to fail. So there are so many people that are sort of, and I remember sitting there and going, I've told everyone I'm going to beat this guy. I was like, I've told everyone who I work with, my colleagues, people who I see every single day at the gym that I'm going to have to go in Monday. And they'll be like, how did your fight go? And I've got, I lost. I was like, I've told everyone exactly what I'm going to do, exactly how it's going to go. I was like, and in the back of their heads, they're probably thinking, oh, God, this arrogant 19-year-old saying that he's going to do this, do that. And like, you just got to use it. There's no point sitting there dwelling on it because it's not them in the cage, it's you.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love that mentality. And like the big thing too is like, when you said like that arrogant 19-year-old, it's like that just made me think too, because it's like I see that kind of stuff a lot where like athletes are afraid to tell me what their goals are because they're like, oh, I don't want to be like that guy that's like talking about how I'm going to be all that if I'm not. It's like, but also it's like if you're walking around every day and you're backing up those claims, like if you're telling me you want to be a UFC champion and then you're working 65 hours a week towards that goal of being a UFC champion and not cheating on the diet during training camp, not, taking that week off when you're just not feeling up to it, like you're doing the right things, then hell yeah, shout it from the rooftops. Like tell
Exactly.
everyone that you're going to do that because you're fucking backing it up. Like if you're not willing to shout it from the rooftops, to me, that tells me you're not doing enough.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people, and especially fighters, that sort of want to pretend to be something they're not. I'm probably come across as arrogant. I think I can beat whoever they put in front of me. I believe that before I turn pro, I will be one of the top ranked amateurs in the country. I don't really care whether someone says, oh, mate, do you not think that's a bit arrogant? Like, I don't really get what they want me to say. Do you want me to say, oh, I think some people could definitely beat me up? Like, what do you want me to say? Like, yeah, I'm probably arrogant. I think most fighters have got egos and got a chip on our shoulders, and we think people are doubting us, even if they're not. But that's how it works. You have to. You get nowhere sitting there thinking, oh, yeah, I'm okay. Like, but I might beat some people, but some people might beat me. You're gonna get your face smashed then. Like, end of.
Dude, 100%. But I think like the biggest thing and what I really love about, the way you're portraying it as well is that like, yeah, you say that you're going to be one of the top ranked amateurs in the UK when you turn pro because every single day you're living the life of someone who is going to become one of the top ranked amateurs before they turn pro. Like if you were telling me that, but then you're telling me, oh, I'm out drinking every weekend and I'm blowing my money on shitty food and oh, I cheated on my diet and I missed weight, but it's no big deal. I'm just an amateur. Like then like, yeah, shut up.
Amateurs missing weight is my biggest thing. So I'm just like, whether you're an amateur, you sign a contract to fight at a specific weight. Make the weight. Make the weight.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's no excuse. Like if you don't want to cut any weight, you're an amateur. You haven't got to cut weight. It's up to you. Fight at a higher weight class. Like you're an amateur. You haven't got to cut a load of weight if you don't want to. Like, and yeah, it's just odd. People missing weight. It's my biggest pet peeve is people missing weight. Like it sucks. Cutting weight sucks. Get on with it. Just cut the weight.
Yeah, just do it. I love it,
Yeah.
man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do all of this. I think that's a really good spot to wrap it up. We've touched on some really, really good stuff here. I appreciate you doing it, taking the time to do this. And for everybody watching, where can they find you? Where can they follow you and follow you along the journey to that top ranked amateur position in the UK?
So my Instagram is maxsmith_76. And then I fight on. I don't know when my next fight is. I'll definitely be fighting in October on a card called Shokanor in the UK. But I'll definitely fight before that, if not once or twice. I fought 3 times last year. I want to fight 3 to 4 times this year, and I'll have 6 or 7 fights after just over 2 years of training. Like, there are a lot of people that don't have their first fight till 2 years of training. So yeah, keep up with the journey.
Yes, sir. I love it. All right. So everybody, as you tune into this, make sure you go give Max a follow. And as always, I appreciate you all for taking the time to tune in, whether you're here live or on the replay. My one ask of you all is, if you have gotten value from the show, make sure to share it around with a friend, share it around with a teammate, share it around with someone who's going to. So thank you all for taking the time. That is it. That is all for us. And we will talk to you all again soon.
Cheers.